Welcome back to EmRatThich channel, the best place to learn table tennis. The video has the subtitle. Please turn on captioning for better understanding.
What is the effect of table tennis rubber sponge thickness? What should you choose? The right thickness, 2.0 mm, max thickness, 2.2 mm or 1.8 mm. Is it better to choose the thinner sponge or thicker sponge? I will answer it right now. What is max thickness for the rubber sponge? The max thickness allowed in table tennis is 4 mm. Here is the sponge thickness, 2.2 mm, and the top sheet thickness, 1.8 mm. So, when you want to increase the sponge thickness, then the top sheet thickness will increase. But you can't decrease the top sheet to 0 mm. Think about it. If the top sheet thickness decreases too much, there is no friction between the top sheet and the ball. It's harder to generate the spin. That's why there is a limit of the sponge thickness. The limit thickness is 2.3 mm. That's why it is called as max thickness, the max thickness limit in table tennis that we can produce. The thickness of the rubber sponge in table tennis affects the following aspects of the game. Speed. Thicker sponge allows for more speed and spin in shots. Control. Thinner sponge provides more control and precision, while thicker sponge provides more power. Spin. Thicker sponge generates more spin. Ball sensitivity. Thinner sponge is less sensitive to the ball, while thicker sponge is more sensitive. It depends also on hardness. Sound. Thicker sponge produces a louder sound upon ball impact. Which thickness of rubber would be a good fit for a beginner? Maybe you have read on several forums that beginners should start with 1.8 mm, 2.0 mm. Yes, but this approach has some disadvantages. Here is why. A player asked, "My 9-year-old daughter is keen to learn table tennis, so I'm thinking to start off with a slight cheaply beginner setup. I'm considering using Vega Intro on a blade for beginners. Have not decided yet. That is between flex and stiff in terms of elasticity. The question is, which thickness should she start with?" Answer. I have tested several rubbers. 1.8 mm versus 2.0 mm versus max thickness probably won't make much of a difference to a beginner in terms of feel or playability. It depends also on the hardness of the sponge. In my opinion, just start with max thickness and adjust later based on the need. She probably wouldn't even notice the difference. Using too thin rubbers form a bad habit. In table tennis, there is some available sponge thickness for the rubber: 1.5 mm, 1.8 mm, 2.0 mm, 2.1 mm, 2.2 mm, 2.3 mm, or max. So which one should you choose? What is the effect of the sponge thickness on the playing style, the spin, and the speed? It's not only the color, black or red, but also the sponge that will decide your feeling when you hit the ball. Some players assume that a thicker sponge is good for topspin, and a thinner sponge is good for flat hard hit. Is this correct? Or another says, a thinner sponge brings more feeling, and beginners should use a very thin rubber 1.8 mm. Is it good? There is also a debate about this. A big lie about sponge hardness. So who is right? For my new players, I always advise them to use the thickest and the fastest rubbers possible. I found that new players who use thin rubbers, 1.5 mm, 1.9 mm, will improve slower than the players who use max thickness, 2.2 mm, 2.3 mm. Search on Google, Rubber Thickness PingSunday, to read the full tutorial. Why? Bottom out effect. Because of the bottom out phenomenon of thin rubber. Bottom out is the phenomenon that the throw angle of the ball is very low. There is not enough sponge to absorb the energy, and the ball often goes to the net. To compensate for the bottom out effect, new players tend to hit upward. Hitting upward is a very bad habit. When you hit too upward, then your shot is less consistent and less power. Please look at how Chenmeng, Fan Jindong perform their strokes. They always hit forward, but not upward. Hit the ball forward is the only way to make the ball more powerful. What sponge thickness should I choose? 1.7 mm, 1.9, 2 mm, or max thickness? In general, a thicker sponge means you can transfer more energy to the ball, and the incoming energy is also better preserved. I've heard that some coaches have suggested their new players choose a thin rubber. These coaches claim thicker sponge has less control. I don't agree with this. I think that using too thin rubber is very dangerous for new players, for beginners. So my answer is, choose the thickest sponge as you can. That means, always choose the max thickness for the modern table tennis. And the ball is bigger now. The old advice that beginners should choose 1.8 mm and 2.0 mm is outdated. Trust me. Read below.
Read more about table tennis on my blog, PingSunday.com. Get free ebook and coaching advices. See you in the next video.